Welcome to Sunny Anime, a place where you can watch a whole anime without spending hours of your precious time. Do subscribe to our channel and like this video before we get to the storyline. Now, let's start the video. It's part 2 of 4 Nights of the Apocalypse. If you haven't watched the part 1 already, do watch that part for better understanding. Percival is completely baffled by the glowing light emanating from his hands. In a panic, he flails around, accidentally hitting Pigard and knocking him to the ground. Donnie explains that the light is Percival's magic power, which helps him calm down a bit. Pigard, getting back on his feet, speculates on the type of magic it could be. Now armed with magic, Percival fights Pigard more effectively. Pigard encourages him to give it his all. Percival rushes at Pigard, who swings his mace, creating a fireball aimed straight at him. Percival jumps out of the way to avoid it, but gets his cape caught on fire. Pigard reveals it as his Hellfire magic, a relentless fireball aiming for Percival. Percival tries to dodge the fireball, but Pigard insists he won't win by just dodging. Percival runs up behind Pigard, spiking the next fireball to the ground. Pigard redirects the fragments toward Percival, hitting him with all 6 and setting him ablaze. Percival's magic fire won't go out unless he's burned to ash or Pigard allows it. Despite his friends urging him to surrender, Percival refuses. Engulfed in flames, Percival chooses not to surrender. He spreads his magic across his entire body to shield himself from the fire. Pigard is impressed with Percival's control over his magic, despite awakening it only minutes ago. However, Percival has become medium rare. Pigard advises him to give up before the damage becomes too severe. Undeterred, Percival's determination manifests many versions of himself on Pigard's arm and around him. Though tiny, they are strong, holding Pigard's arms down and releasing the fire magic. Despite this effort, Percival has become well done, but his resilience surprises Pigard. Pell tells him to surrender before the damage becomes too severe, but Percival, fueled by determination, refuses to back down. Percival surprises Pigard by healing himself with magic, leaving Pigard bewildered and suspecting some kind of hacking magic. Percival, though dazed, stands up perfectly fine, aside from his burnt clothes. Pigard struggles to identify Percival's magic type, considering it might be the rare hero-type magic possessed by only 1 in 10,000 individuals. If true, Percival could be one of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse foretold by the prophecy, confirming Iron-Knights' assumption. Pigard realizes that once the other knights learn of Percival's power, they might come after him as a potential threat. However, he sees the value in Percival's potential and decides not to let him go. Percival walks up to Pigard and punches him across the street, surprising Pigard with his control over magic despite being a novice. Though pleased with the compliments, Percival is still a novice against a seasoned knight like Pigard. Donnie knows Percival can't win against Pigard, so he uses his levitation magic to make Pigard float in the air and advises Percival to run while he can. Pelgard, irritated by Donnie's interference, unleashes more power, creating a huge fireball to escape and wounds Donnie in the process. Pelgard approaches Percival to finish the match, but the creature Pell met after descending the island appears, confusing Pelgard. The creature uses a magic spellstone to teleport them out of the village. They reappear on top of the dragon's backbone landmark, over 30 meters away from the village. Percival wants to return to help the others, but the creature calls him an idiot, stating he can't beat Pelgard. It explains that Pelgard only came to the village for Percival, and now that he's not there anymore, he won't care about the rest of the villagers and will likely leave. The fox instructs Percival to follow him, but Percival insists on getting information from Pelgard about Iron-Knights' whereabouts. The fox suggests that Pelgard likely wouldn't know where Iron-Knight is, even though they are on the same team. Donnie, curious, asks who Pelgard is. The fox explains that Pelgard is a knight serving under an evil king and part of a team tasked with finding and killing the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse. Donnie is unfamiliar with the Knights of the Apocalypse, and the fox reveals that they don't exist yet, but will be formed soon. The fox, sent from the future, has finally found one of the knights, Percival, who is the Death Knight. At the Holy Knight's base, there's a meeting discussing information about the Knights of the Apocalypse. Pelgard walks in, and they learn that all the knights must be young boys with specific characteristics. Iron-Eyed realizes that the description of the last one fits Percival. As Iron-Eyed leaves, he reflects on his mistake of not ensuring Percival's death, assuming he left him alive out of guilt. Pelgard appears behind Iron-Eyed, stating that Percival's survival was due to plot armor. Iron-Eyed questions why Pelgard is talking as if Percival is alive, and Pelgard reveals that he fought Percival recently. Iron-Eyed expresses hope that Pelgard finishes Percival off, but Pelgard sees potential in training Percival as a holy knight. This sparks a conflict, and Iron-Eyed strikes Pelgard with his sword. However, Pelgard easily blocks it, suggesting that training Percival as a holy knight could prevent him from becoming one of the Knights of the Apocalypse. Iron-Eyed opposes the idea, fearing that according to the prophecy, Percival will one day destroy the world. While Percival dismisses the prophecy about destroying the world, thinking it's a simple matter to avoid, the fox, Shin, insists he needs to come with him. Percival, determined to find Iron-Eyed, questions Shin about the location of the knights. Shin reveals they are all in Camelot, but Donnie, skeptical, reminds them that Camelot was destroyed 16 years ago. Percival suspects Shin might be lying, but Shin assures him that Camelot still exists, though it can't be reached by normal means. To reach Camelot, Shin explains they must pass through the kingdom of Leonis, which is 200 miles away. Percival, despite Donnie's protests, is eager to embark on this journey. As they set off, Percival's hunger prompts him to suggest a hunting competition for lunch. However, Donnie, recalling Percival's previous mishap with the bow, decides to confiscate the weapon until he learns to aim properly. While wandering in the forest, Percival comes across an interesting gorge and enters it. Donnie struggled with the bow, sending arrows toward the target, though not hitting very accurately. In a stroke of bad luck, he missed one target and accidentally hit a giant nun who was peacefully praying in the forest. Apologetic, Donnie and his friends expressed their regrets, but the giant nun assured them it wasn't a big deal as the arrow didn't cause significant harm. Out of nowhere, two fairies approached and told her about a short human who had entered a dangerous gorge known for its monsters. Meanwhile, Percival engages in hand-to-hand combat with monsters in the gorge. After defeating them, he hears a scream from deeper within and discovers an orange-haired person about to be experimented on by a villain named Nons, the Mad Herbalist. Percival intervenes, rescues the person, but ends up getting injected with a mysterious substance that knocks him out. Nons, known for experimenting on creatures in the gorge, is a dangerous individual with peculiar tendencies. Donnie and the others, still searching for Percival, encounter fairies who warn them about Nons and suggest giving up the search as Percival might have already fallen victim to the Mad Herbalist's experiments. Despite Donnie's curiosity about Nons, the fairies insist on his dangerous nature, witnessed through their own eyes. The situation takes a turn as Donnie, Katz, Elva, and Shin rush to find Percival upon learning about Non's twisted experiment with the bunny. Percival, having recovered from the initial injection, finds himself tied to a chair in his underwear. Nons, surprised at Percival's quick recovery, reveals his intention to continue experimenting on him. Percival, upset over being tied up and stripped of his clothes, requests the return of his helmet and cloak, which hold sentimental value as reminders of his grandfather. Nons claims that Percival's clothes were tattered and burnt, but he kept the helmet and cloak as powerful magical items. Injecting Percival with another mystery substance, Nons plans to return in an hour when the effects are expected to take hold. Almost immediately, Percival's hair grows even larger, causing him distress as he realizes he won't be able to fit his helmet over it. Despite Percival's accusations of evil deeds, Nans asserts that the fairy attacked him first, justifying his actions as self-defense. Percival, however, points out that Nans had blood on his mouth, suspecting him of biting the fairy. Nans clarifies that his habit of biting his lip when excited is likely the cause of the blood. Percival, now uncertain about Nans' intentions, learns that Nans has a sister who criticized the same habit. Meanwhile, Donnie attempts to escape, and the fairies blame Nans for the chaos, but his sister vehemently denies his involvement in such actions. In the midst of the confrontation, Percival realizes he needs to leave, but Nans insists on completing his experiment precisely to prevent potential backlash that could harm Percival. While Nans doesn't feel obligated to explain himself, Percival takes matters into his own hands, breaking free from the ropes and attempting to put on his helmet. However, his enlarged hair proves to be an obstacle. To prevent Percival from leaving, Nans brandishes two magic swords, promising not to kill him, but determined to keep him for experimentation. Percival, opting for dialogue, offers to help Nans if he shares the problem he's facing. Nans sees no reason to accept help from a stranger and is solely focused on using Percival as a test subject. In the heat of their struggle, Percival falls backward, seemingly at Nans' mercy. However, in a twist of fate, his helmet flies off and strikes Nans in the face, knocking him onto the table where he was working on the experimental drug. The drug, a crucial creation for Nans, goes flying across the room, caught by Percival. Now in control, Percival has the upper hand. Nans, desperate to salvage the situation, pleads with Percival not to harm the drug, promising to let him go if he returns it. Percival, realizing the importance of the drug to Nans' plans, decides to take a bold move. He takes a big swig of the mysterious potion, and the consequences unfold as he falls to the floor, screaming. Percival, filled with newfound energy and power after drinking the experimental drug, runs outside and yells at the top of his lungs. The others, hearing his loud and energetic voice, realize that he must be fine. Nans, still in shock that Percival willingly consumed a potentially dangerous potion, questions his motivations. Percival, not knowing all the details but understanding that Nans wanted to save the gorge, decided to assist him. Percival confirms that the drug had the desired effect, and Nans, grateful for Percival's help, introduces himself. After taking another swig of the remaining potion, Nans drops to the floor. Donnie and the others arrive, and Percival explains the events leading up to this point. However, the fairies are skeptical of Nans' intentions. While unconscious, Nans mentions a man named Ordo, a doctor who lived in the gorge before Nans and Delora arrived. Ordo had a positive relationship with the fairies, offering medical assistance and promising not to harm the environment. He mysteriously disappeared one day, leaving no trace behind. Nans, an orphan at the time, was taken in and raised by Ordo, learning about medicine and experimentation. After Ordo vanished, Nans began his own experiments. Nans, determined to save the gorge, wakes up from his drug-induced coma and immediately tries to get up, expressing his urgency to spread the drug through the gorge. However, the fairies, still skeptical and distrustful, start throwing stones at him, demanding that he leaves the gorge forever. Percival catches the stones and throws them back, defending Nans and insisting that he has been working hard to save them. As the purple fog, the very thing Nans was trying to prevent, begins to fill the gorge, all the plants and animals in the forest start dying. Time is of the essence, and Nans needs to spread the drug to counteract the effects. Percival, confused about how Nans plans to do that without any more of the drug, learns about Nans' magical ability. He can create and replicate any drug he has ingested before out of thin air. Nans warns everyone to cover their mouths before using his ability to spread the drug throughout the gorge, effectively reversing the devastation and restoring life to the creatures within it. He emphasizes the importance of understanding an illness or poison to cure it, recalling the words of his mentor, Ordo. Percival, in an effort to replace his burned clothes, gets a haircut and some of Nan's old baby clothes. The fairies begin to apologize to Nans for their mistreatment, acknowledging that he was only trying to help them. Nans, understanding their concerns, assures them that it's fine, admitting that he accidentally turned some animals into monsters during his experiments. When asked about the cause of the initial problem in the forest, Nans explains that after Ordo disappeared, the life in the forest began to wither away, prompting him to start his experiments. The fairies express gratitude for Percival's presence, as without him, Nans wouldn't have had a test subject for his drug. However, Shin points out that the fog not only affected the plants and trees, but also the soil, suggesting a deeper issue in the gorge. Suddenly, an ugly monster emerges from a hole in the gorge, and Nans is overjoyed, thinking it's Ordo. However, Delora pulls him back, sensing that something is wrong. The monster, identified as Ordo, unleashes a poisonous breath, causing further devastation in the forest. Nans pleads with Ordo to stop, but the monster is fixated on destroying the gorge. Monster Ordo grabs Nans, intent on crushing him, but Delora intervenes, rescuing Nans while sustaining serious burn injuries from the poison breath. The fairy responsible for this chaos returns, revealing that he was the one who turned Ordo into a monster. Percival, realizing he contributed to the mess by letting the fairy escape earlier, feels frustrated. In the midst of the chaos, Nans, seeking a solution, asks what they should do. Percival hugs him and confidently declares that they will return Nan's grandfather to normal with their own hands, setting the stage for the group's next challenge and the continuation of their journey.